joined here by the lovely Brie Tucker.
Why, hello, everybody. How are you?
And we have another lovely here today. We have the lovely Jess Hyman joining us too. So welcome, Jess.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yay! Jess besties. Like, well, okay, that didn't sound right, especially considering today's episode. But what I mean was,
We go way back.
We go way back. Girl goes back to my college days, man. Yes.
19 all the way back to 98.
Yes. They helped raise me.
Not so to differentiate for those of you who listen to No Guilt Mom podcast, Jess is not the one who taught Brie how to do laundry.
No, that was Glinda.
That was Glinda.
I probably taught you something else that's not as useful.
Jess taught me a whole bunch. And I'm trying to think like, oh, you know what Jess taught me that always sticks in my mind? That there are towns in Missouri where you can park in the middle of the street.
That's right. Shout out to Lathrop, Missouri, baby. L-Town.
I have seen some of those.
One stoplight.
And I didn't know they're real.
Yeah, one stoplight and you park in the middle of the street, man. It's crazy.
So Jess, I'm interested, what has Brie taught you?
Ooh. Oh, gosh. A lot, actually. She was a rehab psych major. So she helped me deal with a lot of my wild emotions from having a questionable childhood. For sure. And if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have worked in drug and alcohol counseling.
That's what I was going to say. We worked in rehab together.
We did.
The good way.
Yes.
You were in rehab. You could just lead with that. We were in rehab together.
We had to go to rehab and we said, yeah. No, that didn't work. Okay.
No, I tried. Also, she's incredibly positive. And
she is.
So I learned a lot of how to reframe situations from talking them through with her. So
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
The toxic positivity on occasions. Now that I look back at it, I'm only saying that in respect to not the best romantic relationships of my life. You have observed not the best ones.
I have. As a matter of fact.
I was optimistic.
We were in it.
Yes, we were in it to win it. And it still didn't quite win. That's okay.
It's all good. Well, today we wanted to have Jess join us because we're talking all about becoming a mom at a later age because it's still a little bit taboo in society, and we are going to get into it, and we hope that you enjoy the show. Music! I did remember the music because I'm like, we're doing a separate intro. I have to have a music break.
What the editors told me that apparently when I play those sound effects that they're not coming through on the recordings. So I have to figure out how to use them.
Ooh, interesting.
Which is good that we cut out the newsletter because all the clapping.
Yeah.
There's
a lot of clapping on that one.
There's no sound. And I'm like, well, we were cutting it out anyway, so well.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Okay.
So anyway.
Okay. Do you want to lead us in?
Me? Yes.
Yep.
I can. Okay. So a little while back, we did an episode about like being proud of your body as a mom. And Jess had reached out to me and said like, oh, you really liked that episode. And then we were chatting more. And I was like, are there other things that you feel like are sometimes hard to connect with? And you brought up the idea of this episode of like, how hard it can be when you didn't have your kids in your 20s, basically. Right? Like, and then that made me go down a rabbit hole when I was looking into it some more. And I found I hadn't really realized this, but it totally makes sense. And like how much society can be just really judgy about it. So like what I found was that Cameron Diaz, like, I love her, first of all. I'm just going to say that. Like, I've always loved Cameron Diaz.
She hasn't been around, like, much in movies. She's kind of disappeared from the public eye.
To raise her children.
To raise her kids, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so Cameron had her second kid a couple of years ago at 51. And she was just raked over the coals for that. Like, people were like, oh, you're too old. How can you do that? That was so ridiculous, and it's
unfair
selfish.
To the kids. Yeah.
And yet we have 80-year-old fathers. Like
the
babies.
Right?
Like, why?
The
double
double
standard. That's what they say.
Is like,
yeah.
Yeah. And so you were saying that when I had brought this up about like how I was like, okay, I want to like, dive into this and how society like completely just beat up Cameron Diaz for this, but like you guys both said, like doesn't do that to men. You were like, okay, that made me go down a rabbit hole, and I found a whole bunch of celebrities.
Oh,
so
yes.
I want to hear more about like what did you find for how many like how, because the stats support that there are more women having kids after the age of 30 than ever before, but yet society acts like that doesn't happen.
Yeah, no, definitely. The societal standards are still stuck in some archaic time, which I mean, evidenced by when you're over 35 and you go to, to the OBGYN for your pregnancy, it's labeled a geriatric pregnancy.
I've always found that so ridiculous.
It already has the stigma attached to it. And, for me, like once I got over that, I was like, oh, actually, it just means that I get more medical care. I got a high risk doctor. I got, ultrasounds regularly or sonograms regularly. So I got to see my little baby's face a lot more than other moms. So I marked that in the W category. But, and one other celebrity that we didn't mention was Janet Jackson. She was 50 when she had her first child.
Oh, right. That's right.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. And like even Nicole Kidman, she was 40 and 43. Gwen Stefani was 44 when she had her last child. So it's very common. But I think something that has changed is the emphasis for women to focus on their career. And a lot of times that leads to, okay, well, once I've gone up the corporate ladder or whatever ladder you're climbing, then it's like, now I'm going to focus on the family. Whereas every family's different, right? There are some women who aspire to be a mom, and that is their primary goal, and that's amazing.
That's great for them.
Yeah, but they're probably on the younger end of that bell curve of starting their families.
It's interesting because like when I got married to my husband, I did not want kids young. I didn't. Like we got married at 24. Which was very young looking back. I'm like, I was a baby. I thought I was so old.
No, right? You feel so old.
I thought I was so old.
So old in the sense of like, I know so much.
Yes.
At that age, right?
But at that age, his parents had him when he was 21, when they were 21. And my parents had me when my mom was 31, my dad was 34, respectively. So I thought like having kids in your 30s, that was like a done deal. That was like perfect time to have kids. You could focus on things and it would be fine. And I was all on that path because I was working in entertainment. I was going to be like an executive. I was going to work on TV shows. And then all of a sudden I didn't want to do that anymore. And I changed careers. And it was because I was starting a new career, teaching. I was like, okay, we could have these kids now. But I would have definitely waited. I had my daughter at 27, which I feel is really young for me. Yeah. And it was definitely not in my life plan.
I'm curious. Did your new job of being a teacher influence your, okay, we can have a kid? And the only reason I'm asking is because having worked in that field, I feel like it's very well embraced. Like you clearly like kids, you're working with kids. So a lot of people have kids. Do you feel like that like influenced your, okay, I think we could be ready now?
And I was seeing like, we actually went to go visit his cousins in Denver and they had a 2-year-old, and I saw like that 2-year-old didn't take over their entire life. Like they were still pursuing other things while they had a toddler. And that's what changed my mind, because for so long I thought like having a kid, like your life stopped and there goes all your goals and ambitions and dreams, and you have to focus everything on your child.
Yeah. And I feel like, okay, well, and then Jess, I want to ask you this because I know this little fact about you. I know that when you were in college, your degree was to be in family studies. It was, right?
Child and family development is my degree program.
And you did not have kids right away, hence this conversation. So do you feel like people gave you a hard time or viewed you like as what the heck, like you have a degree in child and family and like you're not having kids?
Yes, especially my own family. So my mom was 17 when she had me, which scared me tremendously, which is probably why I was not in a hurry. Initially, I thought I would have my first child at 25, second at 27. wrap it up, be done.
Be done.
But then, and then and then I ended up divorced at 26. So that already changed everything. And then I was like, I just don't know if I want to have a child. And my mom had a child late in life too. So my youngest sister is 21.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's wild stuff, right? So we span multiple generations just in our siblings group here. But I honestly didn't even plan to have a child in my 30s. I didn't plan to have a child at all, but it worked
Life
out
happens.
that I was 39 when I had him, and I would never change it. It's the most amazing thing. But I think probably to your point, Joanne, of seeing like the child doesn't have to overtake your life, and we really tried to embrace that, and we still do a lot of the same things that we used to, but we're also older. Our interests have changed. We're slowing down a little bit, like it's cool.
You got the fun times out, kind of like, I would say, sort of out of the way. And the reason I'm saying that is because so I didn't think I would have kids at all. And that was the interesting part too, like growing up, being in college with the two roommates that I had, Jess and Glenda, because they both were child focused in their studies. And I loved my major on rehab psych, but one of the reasons I loved it was it didn't require child development. I didn't have to take any child courses because because little kids weren't in rehab. It was adults. So I had no intention of having kids. And then when I got out of college, my job was working with kids, and I decided that, actually, kids aren't that bad. I kind of do like them. I think I want to do this. And then when I got married at 26, everybody at the wedding, not one person that was a family member did not come up to me and say, "So when you guys having kids?" I'm like, I am in a wedding dress right now. Will you just give me some time to breathe?
Oh my gosh.
Past this?
We had our wedding at a bed and breakfast. And so we got to stay the night along with our close family. The next morning at breakfast, they served us fertility cereal. And I'm like, guys, I'm 27.
Wow.
Why is this pressure on women to have kids so damn early? It is unbelievable. And I imagine that along with some hard things about being like a mom who's older, Jess, I imagine there's a lot of good things. And we're going to get into that right after. Jess, what are some of the benefits that you see as having baby later than in your 20s?
Well, so the obvious one is that many of my friends have already been down this path way ahead of me. So I got to be part of that experience, but I also get to tap their shoulder and be like, hey, how would you navigate this? So that is immensely helpful. Also, we're much more established. I've been in this career for nearly 20 years. So I don't have those same external stressors that can affect your parenting style. So I definitely approach things differently in that regard of we do a lot more experience type things. We don't have to say, oh, that's not in the budget, or be stressed about the money aspect, because we're in a good place. I'd also say just general life experience of things to show him, to talk to him about. It just comes easier for me now than, before your frontal lobe is developed or whatever, and you don't have the good judgment that you do in your 40s. So I love
the fact that you talked about how you have your friends who had kids before. You got to see how they'd done messed up. So now what not to do.
Yes. Yes, that is an excellent different side of the coin there. But
I'm trying to think. I think the funniest thing that always stuck in my head that cause I had one sister who had kids before me, and my sister Shanna, and I remember potty training, because I think I was still in college, so I was coming back and staying with my parents. My mom was the main caregiver for my sister's oldest when she was at work. Sorry, I'm trying to put together words today, and it is a day. Anyway, potty training. They used to give her a little treat for every time that she went to the bathroom. And I eventually figured out that she could put apple juice. Oh my God. I cannot think today. Apple juice in the potty. And that was like the big advice I gave people after that was like, don't give them a treat for just going, because then they're going to start like doing things just to get the treat. And yeah, it was crazy.
I got the advice for potty training from Josh's aunt who ran daycares forever, and she's like, nice. double them up on underwear, pump them full of apple juice, and then take a day.
Yes.
you'll get them to go potty.
I love that. And then, the other thing too, and Jess, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this, but I say it all the time. Like, I feel like everybody needs the friend of Ghost of Parenting Future that has like the older kids that can tell you, like, I know it seems like you'll never get through this stage, but you will very soon. That should only last a couple of months. And I know sometimes it's hard to hear people say that because you're like, a couple of months. Oh my God, I'm going to die.
Yes, because the one thing, and I know we're talking about positives, but the one thing that was challenging is because if you think about the after pregnancy hormones, how that changes, and you're just so exhausted, especially like depending on if you breastfeed or not, and all of the and how actively involved your significant other is in the process. Then when you're right around that 40-year-old mark, you've got the whole like perimenopause thing coming in just to knock and mess everything up again. So it's like this wild roller coaster that you ride of emotions and hormones and all that stuff. But so I definitely would be remiss if I didn't mention that, because it is quite the effect.
It's like, do I ever get a break? So
yeah. And because you were already tired, now you're really tired.
Yeah, I would imagine that's the hardest part about like having a baby older, because now I see like my sister has an infant and a 5-year-old, and I'm like, okay, like I do not have the same amount of energy with these two children that I did with my own children. And just because like being older and everything, but it's also a state of mind, because I mean, you know how your mindset influences behavior. So like I know I'm done with kids. My husband has been saying for the longest time that is the benefit of having kids younger, is that you have more energy. So I'm also wondering, I'm like, is this all in my mind that I had more energy then? Like, is this just like me? It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you say you don't have enough energy when you're older, you're not going to have a lot of energy when you're older. Versus when you're younger. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are about that.
For me, definitely, like, and you've heard me say this before, Joanne, like when I turned 40, I definitely, like, between the age of 40 and 42, there was a huge change that happened in me. Like, I cannot do what I used to be able to do. And so I also had the, like, freshly divorced, like I got divorced at 38. So I kind of had that whole second in your 20s lifestyle for a little while, and I could do that. But then once I was like in 41, I'm like, oh my God, I can't go out to a concert till like 2 a.m. and then get up and go kayaking the next morning at 6. It doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, that's funny. I could never do that. It's never in my wheelhouse ever.
Coffee was involved in that, but I could make it happen. Yep. Now I'm just like, now as much as I love doing it, that alarm goes off and I'm like, forget it. I don't know. Nope. Sleep over everything else.
And I have never been a morning person, but my husband and my child both are.
Oh, that sucks.
I have had to overcome that. I mean, yeah, it's not been great. But
my husband has had to overcome that because I'm the morning person.
Yes.
As is my son. My daughter, not so much. My daughter, I was like, oh my gosh, I woke up at 8:30 today. It's so late. And she's like, Mom, stop shaming late sleepers. Like, you're weird.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Yeah. I always know it's coming when you and I go on a trip together, Joanne. I'm like, she's going to wake me up at the crack of dawn. I know it.
I usually go to the gym or something like that. I get out of the room.
You do. The last time we stayed together, we kept the blinds open, and that got me.
Oh, that would never happen.
Light. And
that's
now,
the secret.
Well, after that trip, I made my husband go get blackout curtains for our bedroom. So now the room is completely dark because I'm like,
that's the trick to be early. You just have the natural light.
I can't.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that we have talked about the benefits, but we haven't talked a whole lot about those struggles and ways that you can overcome them. And I was thinking we should add that in here, like right after this break.
Okay, so let's get into some of those struggles that older moms may face. We talked a little bit about it in the beginning with Cameron Diaz being shamed by everyone for being an older mom. What have you come across, Jess? Have you had anyone say anything unnecessary to you?
So there's always the question of like, oh, is this your grandchild? Or
oh my God, ouch!
I mean, so I look a little bit younger than my chronological age, but my husband looks older than me, even though he's younger. So I think that's really where it comes in when they look at us. Yes, he's got the whole salt and pepper thing going on and whatever. So, and there are people our age, like that we graduated high school with or whatever, that do have grandchildren because they had kids pretty much like straight out the gate from or some of them in high school, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I get it. It's this weird thing. Like anytime you see someone who you're like, you're probably in your 40s, it could be a grandkid, it could be your child. It's this very strange place that we're in now. But so that's kind of weird. But the other thing is just like connecting to other parents. Like my son goes to a private school, and most of the other parents in his class are, 10 years younger than us. Or more, depending.
So how does that make it hard to connect with those parents? Like, what are the struggles there?
Really, it's just more like when you're trying to talk to them about things other than the kids. The kids is the common denominator, right? Like that's the easy thing. But if you're trying to connect to them in any other social way, it's like, okay, they don't know the same movies or music or like have the same interests,
Say, like you can't quote anything, can you?
Yeah, you have to like have subtitles on everything basically, or like,
yeah.
But on the flip side, one of the positives is that there is a handful of kids in the class whose parents are our age, and we have like gravitated towards each other because we're like, we are in the same boat together. So it's not a support group that any of us had prior to, but we were brought together, from the kids being in this school together. And I dare say that those will be lifelong friendships all the way around. The kids love each other, and like all of his parents, have a great time together. All, based on the premise that we were older parents.
Yeah.
So, do you mean those kind of things are like great to like really help you get to know other parents? I mean, like finding something you have in common. I often thought that it's funny you say that it was all about their kids like 10 years ago, because I think that's really what it was for me too. Like it was all about my kids when my kids were going through elementary school, unbeknownst to me that it shouldn't have been that way. that was the way to like a lot of depression and anxiety and just like, I mean, I don't know about you, but I am of this I mean, obviously you just said it, because I get bored when parents talk about their kids all the time. I'm like, so what are you doing? And they're like, oh, I don't really do anything else. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I can identify with that.
Well, and I am the living proof of don't do that. Like in my first marriage with my kids, like they were my everything. Like that was 100% all that I focused on. Now, granted, I didn't realize how unhealthy it was at the time. That was my coping mechanism for dealing with a difficult marriage was, okay, I'm going to just put all my energy into the kids
and
focus on them because they're awesome and I love them and I can have a positive impact on that. One person can't make a bad relationship work. But then when we got divorced and we did, equal parenting time, so I only had them 50% of the time, that was awful that was like being dropped into the deep end, not knowing how to swim, because I didn't know what I liked doing at all. I had no idea what to do with my time when I didn't have my kids, and it was awful, and I wouldn't want that for anybody. So yeah, like finding interests outside of your kids is huge. And I know it can seem daunting when they're little, but it's worth the investment. And which is something great that you had, because you had your kids later. You had your established things that were you, and you didn't give it up.
Yep. And so they definitely have become like my support network for a variety of things. So one of the other challenges is, when you're younger, your parents are largely involved in whether they're helping with childcare or just even an overnight. We don't have that ability. My husband's parents are both, his mother is 76 and his father is 81. They have never been able to assist in the child care for us. And granted, when we had him, we lived in Dallas and we were alone. We had no one. And then the pandemic hit, and none of our family had seen him in months and months. And so we made the tough decision to leave Dallas and move back to St. Louis so that he could see, his family. And we did that in thinking, oh, this is really going to open up some opportunities for us to have a life, because we had none other than, what we would do with Brooks. But, so it was sort of like a sad realization. They were like, okay, well, we can't get the support in the same way that we could have if this had happened 20 years ago,
Did you ever ask them, or did you guys like have like any instances where like you tried and they were like, oh no?
So the one thing I haven't brought up yet is the level of energy that my child has.
Okay.
He is off the charts. Highly intelligent, but just wild body. Like can't sit still, always on the move, asks 50,000 questions, which I know is age appropriate. But for them, it's like, whoa, because they only had one other grandchild, and he's 21 now, and he was a very
he can babysit.
No, terrified.
Already taking them off now.
No. Jess is like, you guys. No.
Hard pass.
It's dropped on that.
He didn't even want him to like hug him there for a while. It was.
I can imagine.
But we're moving forward. He's a lot more open now, and Brooks loves him. But he was a different child. Again, highly intelligent, but the opposite. Very calm.
Super quiet.
Grew up with adults. Just could play on his own. Everything opposite of my kid, basically. So they were like, he's too much for us to handle. Even at 18 months, they knew that. And they're probably right. Because he, for the first 5 years of his life, we've just been keeping him alive. So, like protecting him from himself, because he has no fear.
Yeah, just keeping him alive.
That's my nephew. I wonder if you and my sister could like share some war stories, because so far she's had to deal with Hot Wheels trying to flush down the toilet, like 20 of them, 20 Hot Wheels he flushed down the toilet. Tried to headbutt a window with his forehead and broke the window. Was throwing rocks in the living room and cracked their TV. So many
and
things.
Recently tried to build a swimming pool made out of dog food.
20 pounds of dog food all over her living room floor.
We're still waiting for the reasoning behind that one. You need to finish that conversation.
He mixed with water because he wanted a swimming pool.
That's disgusting.
So there's gravy.
This is the 5-year-old?
This is the 5-year-old, yeah.
Yeah. No, that totally tracks.
I can't.
Yeah, that tracks.
I can't. Oh, God. I can't. I try to remember what was the 5. My daughter had a lot of energy. She would like not sit at the table. She would like stand and dance next to the table during meal times. I had to teach her in school to like tap her foot when she like wanted to get up but couldn't, and things like that. But I'm trying to think. I think the worst that I had, and this would have been toddler, was when she decided to get some scissors and cut her hair. She cut chunks out of the dog's hair. She cut.
That's creativity. She's like
hairdresser. Her clothes. All of a sudden, she had all these shirts that had like little patches because my mom sewed on patches.
Wow.
Yeah. That was fun times. Now I have now I have to go to senior information night tonight for my oldest. I know. This is the crazy part, right? Like, and this has got to be part of the weird part for you is that, yeah, like our birthdays are a month apart, 4 years of college together, got married around the same time and everything. And I've got a senior in high school and a junior in high school.
Yeah. And I have a going into public school kindergartner.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And I try to remember, I can remember, like I just said, like I can remember big parts, but not the day-to-day life of the 5-year-old. I don't remember that right now.
I have to block it.
Maybe.
I think people do.
I think we block it. We definitely block it because when I'm around my nephew, I'm like, whoa, this is a lot of energy. And he'll be like, Auntie Jo, come play with me. And I'm like, I'm up here right now. I love you. We tried already.
I think the next big awesome thing was when my kids got into 1st grade, they were able to start bathing by themselves. And that was like, oh my God, 20 minutes of silence. Yeah. Consistently. It was amazing.
No, kids getting older is a wonderful thing. It really,
I know,
really
but it's also sad. Like some of the things that I'm like, this might be the last time he does this. Or when you don't know that it's the last time. I mean, obviously, there's so many things that you won't know. But just like how he says things funny, you know, like all of those things.
Record it, man. You can listen to it later.
I'm not very good at that at all. I need to do better. But I'm like the only person in my household that takes pictures or videos. So, you know, I'm sure that's a shared experience for a lot of people. I know it is.
Yeah, that's a whole other episode about how the mom is always behind the camera and never in the pictures.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly don't miss my kids as toddlers ever. Like I even look back at their pictures like when they were younger and I'm like, oh, that's cute. But then I'm like, and I like them now. Like they keep being funny. They keep being interesting. Things surprise you about them.
Yeah, it's like there's something good about every phase, and
there is,
you know, and there's some things that you just let fall away.
I will say this: like I loved the blind love of the under 5, like just, and it was so big on their face too, like how happy they would be and everything. Now, granted, yes, there was sadness, and I think I'm letting that phase out of my memory. Because now I have like moody teens. But at the same time, something amazing happened yesterday. I was having a not great day and my daughter just got her license and she had the truck and I'm like, hey, I need to have this script picked up. Can you go by and pick that up for me at CVS? First of all, hallelujah, because it was 110 degrees outside and I didn't want to go out. So I was like, yay, she went out in the heat. And when I talked to her on the phone about it, she's like, well, why can't you go to CVS? I'm like, I can. I'm just having a sad day and I'm just trying to pull myself together. So if you could do this for me, it would be a great help. And she's like, okay. So she went, got the prescription, comes back home and then goes, here you go. And then she goes, and here you go. And she handed me my favorite candy. And I was like, oh, that's so sweet. A 5-year-old wouldn't have been able to do that, but they would if they could. They don't have the resources, but that was really sweet. So like, that's something that like, sweet. As they get older, you're like, yay.
Yeah. It's a really good thing.
And then tomorrow, I'm sure she'll be upset with me about something. Probably because I can't give her the truck to go somewhere. Or I tell her she can't go somewhere.
Yeah. Always that.
Ebb and flow.
Just thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. It's been so interesting. And I'm sure a lot of people out there in our podcast land can definitely identify with having kids later and also like the benefits and joys that come with it. So thank you again.
No, thanks for having me. It was so awesome to talk to you guys today.
Yeah. And you know what? If people, if you feel like this episode resonated with you, tell us about it. Leave us a review on our podcast. Let us know what you thought. Let us know what more episodes you would like to hear going forward. We'd love that. Or again, if it resonated with you, share it with a friend. Share the love, people. Share the No Guilt Mom love.
And until next time, remember, the best mom's a happy mom.